Hi there, it's Kirk. Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel, and I have got Tommy the Riff Lord, Victor.
Oh my goodness.
You can even buy t-shirts, Tommy, can't you? That says Riff Lord on it.
Riff Beast. Yeah.
Riff Beast. That's the one.
Yeah. Jamie Josta got those made, and they're sold out, and you can't get any more. So that's.
You've got Jamie
I won't be
Josta.
humiliated any longer. So.
Yeah. So anybody who knows me will know that I'm a huge Prong fan, and I no longer play guitar these days. But when I was in my early 20s, I remember hearing "Beg to Differ," and I'd never heard like alternate palm muting as fast as that. You know that song, "Take It in Hand." I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this? So that really got me into Prong, and then I discovered the industrial stuff as well. But we can get onto that later. But first of all, though, let's just ask, what's going on in your life right now? I know obviously you had a son. Was it 4 years ago? So clearly
3 years ago, and then I had a daughter 4 months ago.
So, oh, congratulations!
Yeah, I was a little baby. So she's upstairs, and yeah. So out of that, and we moved back to New York. So I was living in an apartment in New York. That's where we record. We wrote all the new songs for the new record when we moved out here, and now we live in a house. So yeah, I mean, things are fantastic. I just got off a tour in Europe, 2 weeks with Prong, and it was pretty good.
Excellent. So the Riff Beast, you've been a stay-at-home father then, haven't you, essentially?
I was planning to do that for longer. We didn't know what was going to happen with my career during the pandemic. So we thought about me just being a stay-at-home dad, because who knew what was going to happen. But then we were invited on a Black Label Society tour, Prong was, and it went so well that I decided, well, yeah, I guess we have to make another record and start doing this again.
Yeah, because when we were last talking, it was it was via email correspondence when Scream Last Repeat was doing the Prong discography, and yeah, obviously I got the impression you wouldn't mind if 0 Days was the last album Prong produced, because that is your favorite, I believe, still, isn't it?
Not really. I usually say that about the new ones. I love that discography anyhow. I always refer to. I actually have a link to it still on my phone as a but it was well done. I don't totally agree with all the stuff, but for the most part I did. I don't know if I even like 0 Days anymore. So I like a couple of songs on it, but I haven't really listened to it that much. The thing I like about the new one is that I wrote everything, and the process of writing this record was uninterrupted. It was absolutely, nothing's absolutely perfect, but it was close. Things just went really smoothly. I know you like Carved into Stone. Steve Evans, the producer, he moved out to New York, back to the East Coast at Jersey, though, the same time I did. So that was perfect. And he just about finished the studio when we were ready to go in and record. And I wrote everything myself. I've been writing all the lyrics anyhow by myself, but it was just done in that one block. I just sat there with guitar and just belted out these riffs, and came up with lyrical ideas, made demos, sent them off to Evans. He said they're cool. We went in and recorded the stuff. Got a drummer to do it, and did it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's the lineup for this album? I know
it's always changing. Yeah, the line. Unfortunately, the kid, Griff McCarthy, he can't tour, so or didn't want to, and he plays on the record. I've had several guys come in and out. It's been a mad struggle for guys to be as good as him and emulate what he's done. And finally, I found a guy at the last second to do this last tour. And this guy Wade Murph, so he did the last tour, and Steve Evans played bass on the new album, and then of course yours truly vocals and guitars. A couple of guest appearances. Mark Rizzo plays solo on the Descent, guitar solo, and my buddy Steve sings some background vocals on one of them.
What happened to the last bass? Is it Jason Christopher? Is that what he's called?
Well, he has never played on any of the records. He played on No Absolutes.
Oh, okay.
That was the only record he actually played on. And he's been in and out. Like he's got like, you know, sometimes he doesn't want to tour, he doesn't want to do this. So I got our guitar tech, Christine. He played on the last tour. He wound and had some local shows that we did. He's been killing it. I mean, he's hard to replace now. He's been really good. He plays with Nita Strauss, and he can't do the next tour, so Jason's going to come back and do that one.
So were you ever considering your good mate Monty Pittman to probably come in, and would you go to him if you needed someone to tour, you know, last minute replacement?
I mean, in extreme emergency, but I don't see myself doing that. You know, I may need another guy in the bullpen to do this continual crazy scheduling problems that we have. So right now I got 2 drummers in the bullpen and 2 bass players. I may need another bass player in the bullpen, but I don't consider. I did ask Monty a long time ago, and he was just like about it. So I was like, forget it.
Well, Madonna will be touring soon, won't she? Is he still attached?
I don't think he plays with her anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure though.
Yeah. What about the so you've got Yvette's on bass, and then this kid, as you said, played on the record, but he's not going to be on the record. So I've heard the first 2 singles. I'm interested in your opinion. What if you had to compare it to 2 Prong albums? Because it's not going to sound like just one, is it? What do you think it's going to sound? If you had to describe it to me now, which Prong albums is it likely to be in the same conversation as from your discography?
I would say Cleansing, because Cleansing is diverse and there's some art rock in there too. I think this one does that. This one's a little heavier though. This like an extreme thrasher called The Descent on there. That's almost like it's to me it sounds like Discharge meets Sepultura, and there's something else in my mind that it's heavy, really heavy song, fast. But the rest of it's like there's groove metal on there. They have a little bit of like Another Worldly Device type stuff, and then there's a Rude Awakening type song, Non-Existence, and then there's some different ones that are quirkier as well. So it goes all over, like a typical Prong record. It goes all over the place, and it's hard to really define what genre it is, which has always been the problem with Prong for the masses, and it doesn't really divert that much from the formula of concentrating on songs and some hooks, but being in your face, heavy, and crunchy riffs, etc.
Yeah, you're right what you just said. I mean, my first introduction to Prong was I just knew you as a thrash metal band, and then when I discovered the other albums, especially Cleansing and Rude Awakening, I was thinking, whoa, this is years ahead of where it should be. It's like you'd taken Ministry, their idea of industrial metal, put your own spin on it, and strangely enough, put a lot of grooves in there, and it was still, you had a lot of like Nights of Rev in there, didn't you? It was really blew me away as well. I love that era of the band. I mean, even your early stuff was really, it's crossover, it's hardcore, isn't it? Like Force Fire and Primitive Origins.
Yeah, we still play the song. We've been including the song Disbelief in our set continually live, and it's been going over great, which is like a classic New York hardcore song in my opinion. And well, like you said, crossover, because it's got a solo in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, like the hardcore bands like, well, AF originally did not have solos, and then when they went crossover, like that's the front, they had Steve Martin came in and did solos, and then like COC had solos, so they were a crossover band. DRI, did they have solos? But they were a crossover.
Yeah,
it was a crossover thrash hardcore.
They were probably the first one that even had that album, didn't they? Called Crossover.
Yes, they did. And the hardcore kids hated that. They were in New York. They were like, "That's a commercial bullshit." They were all against that. But Prong was a crossover band that also was sort of an art rock band, and also a metal band too, a burgeoning metal band. Well, we were learning, so we were never that really serious about it. I thought like White Zombie sort of copied that whole thing with they were really just a noise band originally, and then they're like, oh, there's this thing called metal, and then they try to copy they sort of imitated metal as a bunch of like artsy artsy art rockers playing metal, and it wound up being like a serious metal band.
Yeah, they're from New York, aren't they? From your
yeah.
Did you? Am I thinking you did a bit of remixing for them, didn't you? In the 90s, White Zombie. Did you remix some of their tracks, or did they remix?
No, I didn't. I mixed them at CB's as a band. Like when I worked the sound board there. I always forget about them. Like when people ask, "Oh, when the bands came out," I never. First of all, like because Rob is from Boston, so I never really could, But they did form in New York, so they sort of are a New York band.
Yeah, over here in England, I don't think people associate them with New York.
They're not really. No. Yeah, they're not. They never really were. They were sort of, an art rock band that they weren't part of the scene really, to their benefit probably. So I mean, Prong was never part of the scene, but now it's like hurting us because now there's all this like New York hardcore resurgence shit that's going on, and we're not included in any of it. So it's like maybe because we had longer hair, we weren't really a hardcore band, but we played in hardcore matinees. So who knows?
You don't think now modern hardcore, a lot of the bands just sound like either Obituary or Slayer.
I know.
And 10 years ago, they were using prong riffs, weren't they? These hardcore bands, whether they do it or not, they were using prong riffs.
We never get recognized, though. I mean, I don't want to sound bitter, but there seems to be a constant disrespect from young bands about prong and people in general. It's like they're just baffled by it. They just don't. They don't even care, or they're baffled by it. It's like, there's a bunch of bands that really should be identifying with prong, but they don't. Like that younger. And then like hardcore got into, to me, the hardcore, like bands like Fit for an Autopsy say they're hardcore. And it's like, huh? Like what they call hardcore now is deathcore, or
yeah, it sounds like deathcore to me.
It's metal. It's like extreme metal. So it's not really, hardcore is punk. So I don't know what the hell. There's some guy was telling me, oh, it's like hardcore is so huge now because of Turnstile. I'm like, Jesus, this is really a curveball for me. Like, I know they're popular and everything, but it's just, please. I mean, I didn't know that. So we never get the benefits of these decade era, these occasional hardcore renaissances. It never benefits us for some reason. Now Biohazard's back and everyone cares about them. So that's
I think certainly in Europe you're seen as a metal band, because Prong have always had a good audience in Germany, haven't you? Northern Europe.
Yes.
Probably your biggest market. Certainly more than the UK, I would say.
Oh, UK is useless for Prong, pretty much.
Yeah, no, in some ways you're right. I always feel like when we're having that conversation and we're talking about the greats, and I was like, surely cleansing to people who like, guess what they say? Snap your fingers, snap your neck. So people know that song. Everyone knows
They
that.
know that song. That's
It's
about
like,
it.
it's more than that song.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you even have
the fact is that we were on Sony on Epic Records, and they were terrible at marketing the underground with Prong. They, the whole label was geared for like Michael Jackson and like real mainstream pop music, and we were on this label that was just clueless when it came to that. So that was unfortunate. Like the bands that were on Roadrunner benefited from all that, like Life Agony, Biohazard, Machine Head, all those bands benefited in England and Europe more than we did. It was a matter of promotion.
Yeah, do you know, I want to go on to that actually, because that's probably a good explanation, because I always see the golden four of that 90s post thrash as Pantera, Machine Head, Sepultura, and Prong. So obviously Pantera, which major label were they on? But they did get good promotion.
A.D.K, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they deserved. I mean, Pantera was an anomaly because Pantera was so, like, they were so good as a unit. Like, where, the band was around since they were kids, and it sort of just, it became this machine. Like by the time they were already like touring in Texas before even Cowboys from Hell. They had those other records. They had 3 or 4 records before Cowboys from Hell that they've been pretty diligent on getting them out of the marketplace.
Yeah.
And then they got Phil, and then they just exploded. Like, I mean, they were a powerhouse right from the beginning. Where Prong was always we were indie. Like we were sort of popular on the East Coast a little bit. We did make some waves in England, but other than that, we toured Germany. But other than that, we weren't like Pantera was just, they came out strong, on a major label. So it was a different thing. Machine Head I had later. Machine Head is like, I think of them as like a later band, And then, Sepultura was like, earlier than Prong, maybe. I think they were a Roadrunner band, so they had that benefit of that too. But the great thing about Sepultura was like the international appeal of them, because they had from Latin America, just having this identity of that, which was very helpful too. But the records were great. So, I mean, you can never deny the music. And, so that was, Pantera was weird because they were not a glam band, but sort of. And then they sort of found out about hardcore or groove metal via Prong and Helmet, and then sort of merged that into the whole Van Halen thing that they had going.
Yeah, they're big fans though, aren't they, of Prong? Because when you look at the Cowboys from Hell tour, Vinny's wearing the Beg to Differ.
Yeah, Vinny was always very. Yeah, Vinny was the big supporter. Vinny and Dime. Phil is always a little lukewarm when it comes to Prong. It's not one of his favorites. So, that's unfortunate since both those guys are no longer with us. So, but yeah.
What about
we did 2 tours with them. Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at the tours of the night. You did one with Pantera and Sepultura.
Yes,
the full American tour, didn't you? 93 or 94?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a tour that was.
Yeah, that was a big tour. That was a good tour. That was like it was a little difficult touring with them. We didn't have the machine. Like already they had like a whole crew of guys, like Cat and Grady. These guys, like they were so professional coming out with it, because they had this machine. They had all their gear together. We were like Manhattan guys like that. I had like borrowed equipment, and I never, and I had just started playing guitar, and it was like we were totally unprepared for any of the stuff that happened to Prong. Like we kind of sucked. Like we were just like, we didn't have a crew. We had a couple of, like a guy that was helping us out. We were just, a weird art band from Manhattan trying to be a metal band.
Well, yeah, let me ask you the question then. Around 1989-90, why do you think there was so much big label interest in Prong then? Based on what you've just
Well,
said.
it's basically the success we had in the UK initially. It seems like every band has like 6 months of popularity in the UK, and then no one gives a shit about them. So that's what happened with us. Like we had that in New York. We had our own. We had an indie record that did really well in New York. Like we were selling tons of these Primitive Origins records, so everyone was hearing about that. Like we had to keep funneling these records into Bleecker Bob's, which was like a store. It was just like bringing them over. Like we need more records. We need more records. And then Southern Studios, John Loder found out about that, and he was like, I want to put Prong out on Southern. So they had a big promo machine, and they got us popular in England for a second. Then the band kept getting better. So by the time we played a show opening up for the Cro-Mags, Epic, all the labels were interested in signing us. Everybody, and I think it was because of the popularity in England, and people didn't know about grunge yet, so they were looking for the next thing, the labels. And they thought Prong maybe have been it. How wrong they were. But then we signed to the guy from Epic saw us at the show that we just had a good night. We're opening up for the Cro-Mags, and he's like, "I want to sign you guys," and we're like, "All right." Like, it sounds better to our parents and our wives to be on Epic than on Roadrunner. Like I was like, "Hey mom, I'm signed to a major label." Oh, okay, cool. Like, so that's, but we probably should have never signed to Epic Records. So
yeah, I saw that. Monty Connor obviously is a friend of yours. He put on Facebook, didn't he, saying the band that he tried desperately to sign Prong, and obviously you went with Sony Epic.
Yeah.
There's no point looking back on what could have been, but you just said then all these bands, your contemporaries, that had global success because of Roadrunner, and you're saying the promotion was a lot better. You were the ideal band for them.
I know. No, it's like, unfortunately, I wasn't really handling that side of that, answering the phone calls as much as Mike was. So I don't really know what we hired a lawyer, and then Vernon Reed got involved.
Wow.
And he was like, like, I love you guys. I think you should be on Epic. So he got involved a little bit too. So then we're like, then Lisa Robinson, who was she had a column in the New York Post, like a music column forever, which is a daily newspaper. She had her own, they said, about the New York scene. And this is when rock was in the, it's still on the later end where, CBGBs and rock music in New York made a difference. Now most people in New York don't even know what rock music is. So, in Manhattan. So it's like, she was like a big fan of Prong, and she was pushing it. She's like, "You gotta sign. I got you a lawyer for you," and she sort of pulled us into Epic, and we really didn't have much of a choice.
Well, so, like you said, your mother and the wife would be impressed. You'd signed to Sony, So
yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, we're gonna be on a major label. That's fucking cool. You know, that was really, you know, I mean, yeah, we were idiots. So whatever.
So what the one thing that's always curious. So obviously your debut is Beg to Differ, which I just see as one of the best technical. It's really a technical thrash album, that, especially the guitar work. And there's not really many solos. It's just that like those pinch harmonics and the really fast picking. And then Prove You Wrong. Now I did actually speak to Ted Parsons, and he says that's his favorite album, you know, from the Sony Epic era. So when we get to 1993, you do that remix album. I'm curious, how does Sony Epic A&R department react when you give them the demos for Cleansing and it's clearly changed direction towards an industrial type metal? What are they? How did they respond to that?
I don't know how much they got involved with it. Actually, they did, in recollection. We had a different A&R guy. The guy that's another thing, a problem with Epic. The A&R guy that signed us, he got fired right after we got signed.
Oh no!
So we got inherited another guy, and he was definitely not really a Prong fan. So that's where that Prove You Wrong record was ugh, to me it's not one of my favorites. And then the main track, they were very big on Prong because of Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck, because Bill Laswell was interested in producing Prong, and he was a big deal at that time because he did the Rolling Stones and Herbie Hancock and like they were like, they only hear big time shit at Epic, so they were like, oh man, Bill Laswell wants to produce your record. He says he wants to cut a demo, and I was like, I don't want Laswell. I was like, right off the bat, I'm like, he did that Motorhead record. It sounds like shit. And it was like, but they're like, go in and do it with Laswell. Go in and do the demo with Laswell. And he had a studio in Brooklyn. So we went over there, and the song was good. And I mean, we were playing the song out already live. We were playing some of those songs out. Like we did some club shows and shit. So he did the demo of it. I wish I had a whole, I thought it sucked. But they were like, this is the way to go. This is the future. Like they were like, you know, everybody there at Epic were like, you know, and I was like, well, we're not going to use Laswell as a producer. So they got all the names. They came in, like we had meetings with the top producers at the time, like Thompson Barbiero had a meeting with us. Then it's all these other characters, like these other guys that were doing these mainstream metal records, and they all wanted to do it. And then they did not want Terry Day to produce the record. So that was a fight. But we got it done. They were big on it. They were definitely, because again, it was still before grunge. They were like, I think they thought industrial was the next thing anyhow. Like they didn't know, you know, and it sort of was, but not like what Nirvana did. So yeah, they were supportive of that whole process, and like a lot of money was spent on that record. Like way too much. Terry is slow, and we spent too much money on that record. And Rude Awakening, that was a disaster. But you know, I like the way things are done now. Like like the way things are done, the way things that were done in the beginning, and the way things are done now is sort of like, because, well, I mean, I'm more in control now. Like, you know, I don't have to listen to anybody, so it's better.
Yeah, but to me, Cleansing, even now, 29 years later, is a masterpiece just for production alone. So my question is, how difficult would it have been to produce that record sounding like that if you were not on a major label?
I don't think it would have. I think if we used our time properly, it would have been the same thing. It's just some of these guys that like producers that were on that did records. Like Terry had already done a couple of Pantera records, and their budget was massive. Their budget on the records were way more than Prong. And then that he also did Soundgarden, so he was used to these major, like, oh, just go to the label and ask for more money, and then he smoked a bunch of weed and spent 2 days on a snare sound. I'm not exaggerating. That's the way it was. Like, that's the way they did shit back. Oh yeah, I was still working on the snare, And then like Raven came in. It took him 3 weeks to do the bass on the record.
Was that Rude Awakening?
Wait, what?
Was that Rude Awakening when he took so long?
Rude Awakening, he did 3, but like on Cleansing, he did. I don't know how it still took him way too much to start. Nowadays, and then we didn't have digital technology neither, because everything, you couldn't cut and paste shit, which I don't do to this day. But with somebody like Raven, you probably needed to do that. And then so it took a while. And then, it was always the pot and the drinking and the, eating and just all the decadence that went around. Oh, we're in a major league. Oh, I'm going to hang out. Like, oh, let's not work today. And like, oh, let's go shoot some baskets or whatever. It's like all this bullshit all the time. So, like if somebody came in and it was like, I'm not going to fucking milk this thing. Like you're going to finish the guitar tracks in 3 days. Sure, I could have nailed it. Well, I could have done it, no problem. Just they do this experiment, tinkering, that they used to do in the studio.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be frustrating, especially if you're motivated. It's like, look, we've got these songs ready. I want to do the guitar parts, and then someone doesn't turn in for a week.
No, but at that time, it was fine. Like I was enjoying the experience, thinking I'm a big shot. Like we did, and it was multi-coastal. Like we did the basic tracks. He was like, Terry's like, I want to do the basic tracks at the Magic Shop in New York because I really like that room and they got a great Neve in there. Then we're gonna take it, and I want to be back home by my kids, so we're gonna do it at Heart Studio, which is Bad Animals, and that's where Nirvana recorded. And like, all the Seattle bands did that. So, it's like we're moving the whole thing out there. So hotels, all this, we're out there for 3 weeks doing overdubs. Then he's like, we're going to mix it at Electric Lady back in New York. So we go to like probably the most expensive mix down room in all of New York, at Jimi Hendrix's house to mix the thing. So it's like, I'll just go ask for more money, It's like, that's the way it was. But it came out great. I mean, the record was killer. I mean, but, like, if you notice, I co-produced the record. It says co-produced by Prong. It's every day. Nobody else was there during that whole recording process. Ted did his drums in a week, and then we did the basic tracks, and I never saw him again. Raven came out for a little bit, then he left. So I was there from that whole process, like in the mix, all that whole, I did all the vocals, all the guitars. I played bass on a couple of songs. I was there the whole time, and I mixed it with Terry too.
Well, see, fans from that era, myself included, we do see Ted Parsons as a big part of the Prong sound. Obviously, he was in Swans, wasn't he, as the live drummer? What will it take for Tommy Victor and Ted Parsons to record together under the name of Prong? Could anything make that happen?
No. It would be something
Norway,
separate.
Huh? He's in Norway, I believe, as well, isn't he?
Yeah. I tried to do a couple of tracks like with Mike and Ted, and I had this idea, like, if we're going to release the first 2 records, that we should do like a documentary surrounding it and get together, write a couple of songs. And I told Mike about it, and Mike was like, Ted can't even play anymore. He's terrible. I had him do a recording with me. He's terrible. And then I said to Ted that, and Ted said, Mike can't even play anymore. He's terrible. Like, there's no way. So I was like, you know what? Forget it. It's like I have too much other things to do, and you know, Ted hit him. You know, I don't. He went a certain way. You know, the drummers that are around now are like, you know, there's a lot of guys with a lot of better and bigger chops. Like Riff, there's a lot that take the Prong ideas and bring them to a whole other thing. Like I had on Carved into Stone, Alexi Rodriguez, unbelievable drummer.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he brought everything to light. And then Griff, you know, under the direction of Steve, both those guys. I mean, Steve does a lot. Steve Evans, you know, he works with the drummers, and then he edits the drums. Everybody does that now. So, I mean, a lot has to do with Evans, but you know, a lot of the parts require like amazing, like a lot of technical proficiency. So, you know, that's what I need that.
Yeah, you're right. He wouldn't. There's no way. No disrespect to Ted, he just doesn't play that style of Carved into Stone.
He's into dub and everything. He's into the, you know, stuff that's, you know, that I'm disinterested.
Yeah, you'd have to just do Rude Awakening, really, wouldn't you? And Cleansing, you know. If
exactly, it would have to be, which isn't a bad thing, but like I don't feel like doing records like this strictly, you know, like that's simple. We can have those type of songs in there, but you know, not as simplistic as that now.
Yeah, just one thing I want to pick up on, because I know that obviously you'll need to go in a minute. It's funny, you were talking about how indulgent Terry Date was for Cleansing, you know, do this at Electric Ladyland, do this there. You can hear that in Broken Peace, can't you? How many layers are in that song? It's amazing with headphones, even to this day. I love listening to that song.
Well, I mean, it sounds like I'm blowing my horn like a lot on this interview, you know, because, you know, I mean, it's true. Like that, the whole concept of that song was my idea, and where and he was like, huh? I was like, I'm just gonna lay 1 million tracks down, and not 1 million. I'm exaggerating, but I mean, I got like all these, and then we're gonna edit them. And we're gonna figure this out. Like we're gonna fly them in here and there, and he was like, "That's a great idea," like because it's pretty much just a loop, the whole thing. And then like we're flying the guitars in and out. Like Terry was like, "No, I mean Terry." Then he got a hold of the whole thing. Is like that guitar should be the only guitar in the verse, but they were all simultaneously going on, and like, you know, we were just muting tracks really and automating it until it got to that point. There is a demo of that song. I haven't listened to it in like 25 years. I'd like to hear what it goes, but like that's one of the demoed songs. Like we had, most of the record was demoed, for that matter. So, but I remember it was pretty much just like, you know, like that main riff, and then like the bass was holding most of it down, like, you know. Then I had that, and then the vocal, you know, there wasn't all those tracks going on, but I played all the tracks. So then we had it run the whole time, and then we just edited it. So that was, you know, that was pretty much my idea, that whole thing.
See, I'm curious about that song because Korn, they were on Sony Epic, weren't they?
Yeah.
They must have heard. I know that their debut album comes out actually the same year as Cleansing, '94. They must have heard that song, because they, to be fair, they even acknowledge Prong, don't they, Korn, as an influence on the riffs.
Well, I think Jonathan has, yeah, I mean, Monkey, I know those guys, and like, you know, maybe some of the groove metal aspect of things is definitely Korn, you know. I like, when that record came out, I thought it was brilliant. I really liked it. Like Ted hated it. Like he was like, that's the biggest piece of shit I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, you know, this is when we started, you know, like realizing that we were like seeing things differently. But you know, he hated that. Or he thought that Korn record was the biggest piece of shit he ever heard in his life. I liked it.
Right, yeah, great debut album. Some of the later stuff I wasn't as keen on, but if you think about it, you're both on the same label. I think they must have heard a demo of Broken Peace, because that opening riff is that Korn sound, isn't it? The bass riff, and then There's a few riffs on that which do sound, they are quite suspicious on that first Core record. I think they've heard the demos for Cleansing. I'm not saying they ripped you off, obviously.
I think it came out. I think Cleansing was out before it came out, before that first Thorn record. So they must have had the album. So, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the demos got around. Maybe. Yeah, I really don't know what to say. I mean, the Deftones was another band that Terry was working on that did that sort of had, it was like the origins of new metal going on there, you know? So.
Yeah, you think about it, you missed the boat though, didn't you? Because you split after the Awakening.
Yeah, continually. Yeah, I mean, and then like Static X is another band that was definitely the Prong, you know, like where they were big fans of the Rude Awakening record. And they listened to that a lot, you know. So they got Ulrich Wild, who was the assistant on the Terry records to produce their record. So he came out of Terry's camp that worked on the Prong albums. And Static X, they took that in a whole other. They took some of the elements of Prong and exploded with that too. A couple of platinum records later, you know.
Definitely. Well, I know you've got to go, so I'm just going to take up 2 more minutes of your time. I'm going to do something a bit different.
Yeah, no problem.
The 4 Sony Epic records. I want you to guess what my favorite riff is off each album. So if we start with Beg to Differ, you've got to guess what you think I'll give you 2 guesses for a song on Beg to Differ. What you think is my favorite riff on that album?
Well, you said Take It in Hand already. And then maybe, what is it, Steady Decline?
You're right. Do you know what? It is. So it is Take It in Hand, and it's not just one riff. There's 3 riffs in that, aren't there? They're incredible. And Steady Decline is the next one because you remember what I said, the fast alternative picking. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Prove You Wrong. What do you think is my favorite riff on that album? 2 guesses.
Probably Unconditional.
That's number 2. It's not my favorite.
The first one, maybe Pointless.
It's in contention, but it's not. So I'll give you one more guess for Prove You Wrong.
Torn Between.
Irrelevant Thoughts.
Oh, Relevant Thoughts.
Well, I love it. I love that song.
Yeah, no, that's one of my favorites. That was the production didn't really do it justice, but we played that all the time, and then we stopped playing it because people were just not into it. It was too weird.
Yeah, so, the bass is so loud in that song, isn't it? People,
I hate that on a record. I mean, there's so many great ideas on that record, and it just was not executed properly, and we rushed it. It was just really, it's a shame. It really is.
Some great ideas. Cleansing. What do you think? I'll give you 2 guesses. I mean, you choose any of the 12 songs to be fair, but what do you think?
With no question.
That's a great riff. I do like that. It's not my favorite though.
I mean, my favorite's like the opening riff, Another Worldly Device, is a badass riff.
Oh, with a pinch harmonic. No, I like the next one. You know, with the violent syncopation.
Oh yeah, Cut Rate. No. Whose fist is this anyway?
No, I love that. No, do you know? I love the outro riff to that. With that.
Yeah, that's
No, my favorite riff is, we mentioned it, and it's Broken Peace. I just think that's incredible.
Okay.
And then finally, now this one, I think there's some brilliant riffs on your 1996 album, Rude Awakening. So 2 guesses what you think my favorite riff is from that record.
I was at Man's Ruin. Unfortunately.
I do like the down picking in that, but it's not. So one more guess.
I haven't even really listened to that song, that record that much. One of my favorites is Proud Division. Is that song?
Like that.
But no, I don't know what else.
I'm surprised you then. Face Value. I love.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. The good, the techno guitar. Yeah.
How? By the way, before you go, how good is the production, the drums and bass on that song? That is it's incredible. That song, the production.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the production. I did not like the mix on that record, any of the mixes, and I didn't like the mastering on it. So that I had a lot of problems with the final sound of that record was not like, I didn't like it.
Well,
It wasn't what I wanted.
I might have to use the ultimate cliche. I beg to differ on that.
Fine.
I won't be the last one to use that. So thank you very much for joining us on the A.D.K.
Thanks, Kirk.
Show. This could have gone on for another 3 hours.
I know. Thank you.
But absolute pleasure to meet one of my all-time favorite guitarists and songwriters. And hopefully I'll see you in England when you come over to tour. And then we'll do an interview hopefully next year for Scream Bash Repeat as well.